so good to see you. I've got coffee made. I knew you was coming. If I didn't bake a cake, however, there's an old 1940s song that says, "If I knew you was coming, I'd have baked a cake." Well, I knew you was coming, so I made coffee, but no cake. Okay, we're on low carb diets these days. But I put the table out in the backyard, and we go out there and sit beside the river, and I've got the cream pitcher right here. It's so good to see you. I'm so glad you came. Come on. And you've never been out here, have you? Yeah, it's the river. You could if you lean over and look, you can see a little patch of the river. It's you can hear it. Of course, there's a lot of birds out here today. I'm just so thoroughly enjoying this weather. It's so nice. Yeah, yeah. Chicken Bridge is about I'm thinking about 7 miles, 7 or 8 miles. Uh, might be a little bit closer as the crow flies. Hi, Miss Peaches. How you doing? And my kitty cat Peaches. She's the ruler of the roost here. But the ruler of the roost. We were talking about Chicken Bridge. You know how Chicken Bridge got its name, don't you?
Oh, I've got a good old hen. She lays eggs for railroad men. Sometimes one and sometimes two and sometimes for the whole damn crew. My old hen, she won't do. She lays eggs and taters too.
Poor old Mr. Campbell, he had gotten, and the truck had fallen through the bridge, and there's feathers everywhere and everything flying. And from what I hear, thank goodness he wasn't hurt. I think he, as we call it, stove up. Well, the chickens was on the way to the processing plant. There was all the chicken farmers was down in Chatham County. Well, not all the chicken farmers, but there's lots of chicken farmers in Chatham County. Still to this day, there's a lot of chicken farms in Chatham County. And the processing plant was up in Alamance County. And so that's the reason the chicken trucks were crossing the bridge. I mean, here was these chickens who was, doomed on their way, to become Sunday best roasters. And all of a sudden, they're sitting in the middle of the river and flying up into the trees and scooting off into the bushes and going, well, what's happened here,
Well, Mama told me I ain't gonna boogie all night long. Well, Mama told me I ain't gonna boogie all night long. When I start boogieing, baby, I'm a boogie across the floor. Tell me that, boogie. I ain't gonna boogie all night long.
And what the poor chickens didn't know, bless their hearts, is everybody for miles around showed up. some people, they'd go out there in the middle of the day and to catch the chickens, and but people that was real smart, that knew chickens, that had raised chickens or had been around chickens, knew that you went out at night, because what you do is you wait for the chickens to roost and get to sleep. And it doesn't take much past dark, but you do have to wait till dark. Anybody that knows chickens knows the best time to catch a chicken is when he's on the roost. But eventually they all disappeared. We don't know what happened to them. We just have no idea. One day there was chickens everywhere, chickens here and chickens there, little chickens up yonder, and before you know it, all them chickens was gone.
Lord bless his food, for which we thank you. Amen.
Des gros soupirs, à vouloir tant assouvir tout ce jeu. Ne sais quoi d'animal en soi qui nous fait prendre à tous nos soupirs. Je te dis ça sans sourire, je ne pourrais qu'en rougir. Enfant, tu n'es pas meilleur ou pire que ceux qui pour moi soupirent. Mais ce jeu ne m'aime pas, tu m'aimes pas. J'y perdrai le sommeil et le sourire jusqu'à mon dernier soupir et ne pourrai qu'en mourir.
We came here essentially because we wanted to raise our boys in a small town atmosphere, and I could have opened the store anywhere, but I wanted them to be able to ride their bikes and walk in town, and so we just fell in love with Pittsburgh, mainly because it was a very artistic community, and there were a lot of people here like us. We didn't stick out like a sore thumb. And we restock every week, and we're going to be closing July and August. I have to laugh because when I first came here, people weren't real sure because I wasn't born and raised here. And one of the things is they said, "Oh, the weirdest people come to your store." And I said, yes, and they eat in your restaurants and they shop in your stores, and what's good for one is good for all. And so I do bring a different clientele to town, and I call them the fun people. And so it's this small town has provided me a wealth of stories and a wealth of support. And if you want to know when the grand reopening is, put your name and address, and I will contact you. We're going to do a street dance, and it's going to be a fun time.
I'll put my name down.
Yeah. I might even have the never. When I was in college at East Carolina, I couldn't afford to buy clothing, and so I would go to little swap shops and little thrift shops and buy my clothing, and I was little at the time, and I fell in love with the 1940s, that period of clothing. So I would dress vintage, and that was back in '66. And then I outgrew my vintage and started putting it in the store, and found out that people liked vintage clothing, and that's how I got interested, was in my youth dressing that way. When you're in the clothing business, you know, you need mannequins in order to dress them, and a lot of times when I dress mannequins, that outfit will go immediately. She came from the same warehouse that I got these, and I liked her because she was flat, and I dressed her up as Wonder Woman, as you can see, and put a wig, but really, that's her. And I guess it goes back to having dolls to play with, but I love body parts, hands and feet, and mannequins.
She had been a Shaker Heights housewife, married to an attorney, done all the normal matron things. When he died, she went her own way. And she wore strictly flapper dresses.
Oh.
Bobbed haircut, her name was Bernice. She wore the bob and she wore the flapper dresses. And she lived her life the way she wanted to. She would...
That's the way to do it.
It was amazing.
This is Penny Heiser, and she's my upstairs girl, and I couldn't do without her, even though she did have her feet on the counter, leaned back, reading a book. You know, good help's hard to find, and so I'm going to keep her. She fits right in.
How long has she been with you?
Not even a year yet, have you, Penny? I met her across the street. She was helping a friend sell out an antique store. And I walked in and met her, and we sort of had dark humor together. And I thought, you know, I think I could work with this girl here, and she's been a godsend, really.
The nice thing about being here is you get to be you. So you have a lot of free reign and a lot of freedom, and I like that. I'm definitely a jewelry fan. I really don't know that much about vintage clothing. I mean, I know what I like. I like to bring the pin cases up because they get disarranged and then they don't display nicely. And if you display them prettily, then they sell. And that's the object, is to sell. I've been in retail since I'm very, very young. Usually when people are looking to buy costume jewelry, they're looking for a specific color. So it's much easier if you group the tray that way, and then they can just look at it and it's there. There we go.
The old calendars have gone out. The only one I see, I've got 69, 70s. Nope, don't have anything in the 50s. Yeah, well, I've got the 69, so I think I do have a 74. Okay. I doubt it. I expect they'll still be here. Yes, ma'am. I will. Okay, I'll set it back. I'll look for the 74. All right. All right. Bye-bye. I just had a big sale in March. I do a big month-long sale. And so I'm low in stock, although most people would not know that. But one of my things that I do when I have a sale is the first night you can come in and get a free garment if you wear it home. And that's wonderful because people love free. So, and I'm getting have the big Shikori Festival next weekend, and I'm taking a big truckload of clothes there and putting them out for free. And I like being able to give stuff away when I can. Oh, I've got nightgowns and shirts and blouses. It's sort of hard for dresses and things. And I took most of my winter stuff on Wednesday, and we don't need it today. So I hope all of these are gone by the end of the day. Polyester pants so you can sweat, you know. Try some things on. Yeah, you haven't had time. Hey, Carol. Hey. Oh, that's a good shirt. Oh, that is a good shirt. That's a good shirt. Steak. This is Johnson County Fair. Yeah. Great reds, really. Oh, look at these. Yeah. Oh, trouble. Trouble. Up. See, they're going already. I love it.
Do the straps adjust? Well, there's always pins.
There's always pins. And, you know, I expect the first thing that... Up. Who said, Carol, that'll look good on the floor. Oh, that's how. Oh, that is beautiful, Carol. Da 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 da. Hey, Ellie.
We're here at Raffi here in Pittsburgh to host our second annual Kentucky Derby fundraising party to support Heads Up therapeutic riding program. Pam is the owner, of course, of Beggars and Choosers, and if you ever get an opportunity to go there, the upstairs is filled with fabulous vintage clothing and wonderful hats. So a lot of people here get their hats from Pam, dolly them up, and then they come out here, and Pam has to pick who's the best.
Okay, judges, you may begin.
Oh, here comes Sarah. Yes, Sarah, get in line.
This road. Do work.
You're fine.
Well, that was
I was just watching an old.
Is that 40?
Is that 40?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, the job is getting harder and harder. It's all my friends in hats.
Well, you know, Pam, when
Yeah.
you sell all the hats,
Okay. Dig deep and we'll see who wins. Oh, don't get that.
Got my shoe purse.
You got your shoe purse. That's her right up there, Marilyn.
I know.
How much was that shoe purse?
$35. Most expensive purse I've ever owned.
Where are you ever going to see another one?
Don't know.
Is that cool?
That is really cool.
That's pretty cool.
It's like
And
two
it could be a
passions.
lethal weapon too. You know, you
Can I get a
could
shot of
really
that?
hurt somebody with that. She wanted my shoe chair upstairs and I wouldn't let her have it, so she went and bought the pocketbook instead. People come in and they'll see something from their childhood and they just have to have it because they remember and they have a good memory that goes with it. I've had a customer come in one time and she was going through the perfumes and all of a sudden she started crying and you know, I'm going, are you okay? Because she just burst into tears and she had picked up a bottle of Old Spice and her father had passed away and that was the cologne that he wore and that sense of smell just brought her to tears because it brought back, you know, it flooded memories of her daddy. So it's just amazing, you know, what people keep or collect because they remember it from their childhood. Clothing carries a lot of history and a lot of feelings, and you can get to know somebody by the kind of clothing they wore, the music they listened to, or the books they read. It tells a lot about people, and I guess losing all of my family's things in a fire made me have a greater appreciation for old things. But I also found out you can't buy back family pieces. So I like tag sales, but I sure hope my stuff doesn't end up in one. You know, it's just, I bought like photo albums, and you go, this is somebody's grandmother, this is somebody's grandfather, and you would think they'd want to keep that in the family, but a lot of times the people that could tell you who these people were are dead. So here's a family that's got these pictures and they don't know who they are, you know, but I'd still want to keep, you know, family photos. And so sometimes I wonder why people get rid of stuff. And then on the other hand, I understand, because there comes a point you don't want to be encumbered with it or responsible for it anymore.
I think that one of the things that has placed me closer to my parishioners has been involvement in deaths of their loved ones. I moved in on Friday, and on Saturday I went to the funeral of one of our parishioners here. His mother had died. Now, the Presbyterian church, the pastor there was doing the funeral, but I got to attend my very first funeral within 24 hours of having moved here.
I had always worked in textiles. Textiles were disappearing from Montgomery County, and I felt like medicine, but EMS in particular, be a good career to pursue. After a couple of years, was fortunate enough to be hired with Carolina Air Care out of UNC Hospitals. Became a flight medic, which had been a dream for a while. And then in 1999, had the chance to come back with First Health to Montgomery County as the EMS director.
When I first got here, my homiletics professor, my preaching professor, he says, pick up the phone book and call the funeral home. He says, the one that's used most often in your location, call the funeral home. Go down and talk to the funeral home director, call the people in the church and find out who has the power to say what kind of flowers can be placed in the church, what kind of meal is provided, what does the funeral home allow, how do they operate. He said, go ahead and do that. 2 hours first on the sermon, and then whatever it takes to find out what you need to know about life and death in your community.
My grandfather was the initial owner of the business and initially started the business in 1910, and we've been here since. My father died on an ambulance trip in 1967 while out on an accident scene. My mother ran the business until I could get old enough and get licensed and come back to home and serve my community.
I started as an intern through a class in high school when I was a junior. And the lady who used to do flowers here, Estelle, she trained me. I had a couple of classmates to, well, I had one that died in a car wreck while we were in school, and one to die in a car wreck right after we graduated. And that, being in this kind of business, I had to you know, be more involved than, you know, most kids, you know, with the funeral and things like that, which was emotional. But you kind of you shouldn't show it, because you know the families, they come in here and they're upset, so you just kind of hold it in to yourself.
Started to at high school, they would get me out of school to come home to work a funeral if we had one. I started to spend more time in the preparation room at that time, helping other licensees, and probably got my experience through Bob Ridge and Kenneth McDowell.
The very first ambulance call that I was allowed to ride on before I had finished my certification, it was like, okay, we're going to let you ride, but we may have to make you sit in the front seat because you're not quite ready yet. And the call was for a child that had been struck by a car, and we arrived on scene. The child was pulseless, not breathing. He was 8 years old, and he was my first cousin's son. And I made it through that call. I made it through finding the family by telephone after we got to the hospital and having them arrive to the hospital. And the folks who've been training me were like, we hope this is not ending your career before it has started. And I said, well, I know that he got everything he needed. Everything that could have maybe not needed, but everything that we had that we could do for him was done. So there was no guessing, and it was rewarding to know that that was available here and that I was able to help provide that. And so I think I kind of built my career on that. In 95, Moore Regional Hospital was starting a critical care team, and I came back and interviewed there thinking it would be an opportunity to move closer to home and still utilize skills and take care of really sick people. And when I was offered the job, and the Human Resources Director took me on a tour of the hospital, we were walking through the hospital and everybody spoke. Everybody said, hello, how are you, good morning, whatever. And each time I looked at her and I said, well, that was really nice. And, you know, after turning several halls and meeting several people, I said, well, that was really nice. And I thought, but that's the way it should be. People should be able to speak to each other.
It was fun to get out and just walk up and down the street and go into the different little shops and talk to people and get to know them. And then even some of the parishioners that I went to visit, you know, I could walk from the parsonage, which is just down the street here, to wherever they are. Within a mile or two's radius, you can see just about everybody within the church.
Death claims are a very special time. Those are really, really tough when I'm involved in that, because I always know my people. I never write insurance on a stranger. It's always somebody I've known all my life, it seems like. When there's a death, I'm going to know the entire family, that person and their children and grandchildren, or sometimes if it's a young person, I know their parents and grandparents. And so in a community like this, I'm just involved with all of them. So it's just a very, very touching time for all of us, for our entire staff at this office. We're just involved with going to visit with the family, we take food. We're at the funeral home with them. We collect the death certificate, and we get the check and do the appropriate thing with it as soon as possible.
We really do EMS in Montgomery County because we know every patient. or we know their neighbors, or we know their friends, or our children go to school together. So it's different when you take care of people that you know. You're not just going through the motions of providing patient care. You're taking care of all of their emotional needs and their family's needs at the same time. So it's exciting to be able to do that at home.
I think what's really special about a small church, a small community, is the fact that they come together. It's like Joe this morning. My treasurer called me about 8:30 to tell me that he'd passed. And I am sure that before the words even got out of her mouth, the whole community knows. And the fact is that they will gather around those that have suffered this loss, and they will walk with them, not just during the time preparing for the funeral and just immediately after, but I've seen especially some of our older ladies in the church, and even some of our older gentlemen, pick up the phone and say, would you like to go to lunch? Would you like to go to supper? Let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's just be together today. Are you doing okay? And if you're sad, let's get out of the house. And they support each other that way, not just for a short period of time, but for the ongoing days and months and years to come. A small town like Star, it's just such a tight-knit community that everybody feels the pain and everybody helps carry that burden.